And this seems like one of those perishable bits of writing. I don't know. We'll see. 1944, though, so we'll see. The Pearly Gates of Cyberspace, A History of Space from Dante to the Internet. Now that's what got me to buy this, A History of Space from Dante to the Internet. Plus it's only $1, and it's a cute little hardback binding in almost perfect condition. But I read a bit in it, and it is pretty silly. It's probably a postmodernist, a Platonist, someone who is very fond of Picasso and really despises Bach and Mozart. That's the type of author that wrote that. Margaret Wortham. Okay, the next one. John Kenneth Galbraith's The New Industrial State. Now, Galbraith, I think, is a complete ninny, if I remember right. I'm not sure, but I think he was one of the bad guys in economics. Published 1967. So, either good or bad, now I've got it on my shelf. I almost bought a paperback copy of it that same day, but didn't. Chaos, Making a New Science by James Glick. Now, he wrote a book just called Newton, about Isaac Newton, and it was pretty good, just because you can't write about Newton without being pretty good, I guess. But on the whole, I saw what James Glick was at the time. And now he comes with quantum mechanics and chaos theory and unpredictability theory and stuff. So if he was as bad as he was with Newton as his subject matter, I can't imagine what he takes for granted in there. But I do need to expand the number of books I have on quantum mechanics and chaos and all that axis of stuff, because I want to understand it better, and so you have to read the stuff. Steelworkers in America by David Brody. The non-union era. I thought that's going to be interesting then, before the unions, what steelworking was like. And it turns out to be a history of, published in 1960, turns out to be a history of 1935 to 41, basically, during unionization. Most of the book is spent in that time period. So we'll see how good it is. $1 for that. $1 for The Age of the Muggles, the story of the robber barons and the great tycoons by Stuart Holbrook. Now, if you watch my capitalism series, I do have quite a few excerpts from that book in there. The Merchants of Grain by Dan Morgan. I'm going to do a few excerpts from this book, I think, because I actually bought it, and then I picked it up later and was looking through it, about to start to read it, and read the first few pages, and I thought, Jesus, I wonder if this will have information on the Russians buying all that grain in the early 70s that created such a scandal. And sure enough, it mentions it and goes into it just in the first few pages of the introduction about the Great Grain Robbery, and when Russia purchased like a quarter of the U.S. grain thing without the United States knowing, and a lot of the grain had been shipped and was in Russia by the time everyone found out. But anyways, so that might be a good book. It's about the scandal. It's saying these big corporations have control of our food supply. What are we going to do? You know, it's crap, but they can't help but put history in there. So, The Age of Democratic Revolution, A Political History of Europe and America, 1760 to 1800. Now, I'm afraid that I have a copy of this in paperback already. Hopefully not, because I don't really need multiple copies of this, but 1959 is the publication date. Revolution in East Central Europe, The Rise and Fall of Communism and the Cold War by David S. Mason. Really shouldn't have got it, but I saw it there several times over a couple of months, and I said, all right, I better get it. The American Automobile, A Brief History by John Ray, R-A-E, published 1975. Now, I wasn't sure how good it would be, but then I saw Chapter 1, Marketing of Model T Fords from 1908 to 1916. That's chapter 1. So I thought, what the hell. Next one here, The Ancient Near East by William Dunstan. Published in 1998, The Ancient Near East. Pretty academic, pretty much for academia. But it traces it all the way from the Paleolithic on up to like Greek times. So, Vasari on Technique. Now, you may have seen, I also have Vasari's Lives of the Artists, and I think that this is expanded, an expansion of things that he talks about in Lives of the Artists. Whether it was done before or after that, I don't know, and I'm not really sure about that, but this is about how to like mix your own paint from egg whites and stuff like that, and then how to paint layers of atmosphere in your paintings so that you get depth of distance and stuff. I couldn't resist having it for $1. And it was written in like the 1700s or 1600s or something. Classics of Western Philosophy, edited by Stephen M. Kahn. Look at that, that's quite a large tome, or tome, for $1. And it's nice to have these around. They're sort of useless because it has a lot of crap in it. But they're also nice for out-of-the-way stuff that you didn't think you'd ever need, but there it is on your shelf when you need it. And this has got Plato, Aristotle, Epicurus, Epictetus, Augustine, Anselm, Thomas Aquinas, René Descartes, Thomas Hobbes, Baruch Spinoza, Leibniz, Locke, Berkeley, Hume, Kant, John Stuart Mill. So, pretty good. Not a lot of crap in there. It doesn't go into like Heidegger and stuff like that. Classics, old Western philosophy, and no Buddhism. Every once in a while, you get a philosophy textbook, and it does in fact have a chapter or two on Eastern philosophy in there. Wasted paper. Okay, next, The Republic of Plato. I have a couple copies of that. I tried not to buy this, and I've passed up many more copies. But for $1, it's hard not to get a good, solid binding in very good shape. Hard to pass it up. Alexander's Path by Freya Stark, with line drawings by the author and maps. Didn't need another book on Alexander, but I saw it there and had to get it. Published 1958. Publication date may have been what sold me on it. That's a nice copy. The Dilemmas of Independence, Ukraine After Totalitarianism by Alexander J. Motyl, M-O-T-Y-L. Now, this is, quote, a Council on Foreign Relations book, end quote. So I don't know how good it'll be, but, and it turns out that the person is basically a bleeding heart leftist, anti-corporate, anti-globalism liberal. So we'll see. I read the first 10 pages, so. Alright, last and not least, I think, Roots of Steel, Boom and Bust in an American Town, an American Mill Town. This is about, this is published very recently. This is an advanced reading copy by Deborah Rudisil, 2010 is the publication date, so that's very recent. And this is about Dundalk, D-U-N-D-A-L-K. I don't know, I think it mentions where it is, and I've read the first 10 pages. But this is also by an anti-corporate, bleeding heart leftist liberal who interviews people that have lost their jobs and stuff, and everybody's going to die. Alright, that's the end of the latest Rescued Books file.